It's been a dramatic few months since the Georgian Dream Party won the country's parliamentary elections amid accusations of unfair voting. In this episode of the Europe Conversation, I sit down with Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobachidse to find out whether Georgia is still on that European path, its relationship with Russia, and what the future holds as the new US administration makes waves in the region. Prime Minister, great to see you again. Before the elections, you told Euronews that you wanted Georgia to be a fully fledged member of the European family. You know, after all that has happened between Tbilisi and Brussels since then, if Brussels were to call tomorrow, would you go, and would you go into talks and restart those negotiations?
Well, thank you for your interest, and it's great to see you again and to have this opportunity to speak with you, to your audience. Yes, so we have a very strong foreign policy priority, and that's the full-fledged membership in the European Union. We are facing some significant challenges with the European bureaucracy, but we are still very optimistic that Georgia's EU membership by 2030 is achievable. So that's our medium-term goal, and we will be consistent in terms of following this goal. And I'm hopeful that the approach towards Georgia will be more fair in the next upcoming years. So we will do our best in order to promote our European path.
Are relations with the EU at a crisis point as far as you're concerned then?
We are interested to have a kind of healthy relations with the European Union, which is not the case at this moment. But we are confident that it's not because of Georgia's policies. It's because of the European bureaucracy's policies towards Georgia. So if that policy changes, everything will be in a better shape.
Looking at your strategy for moving ahead then, you know, is Georgia very firmly on that pro-European path? If it's not immediate, what is your path for the foreseeable future?
Well, absolutely. So again, we are committed to the European integration. We stand ready to consistently fulfill all the obligations deriving from the association agenda, deriving from the DCFTA. So that's a very clear agenda. And we will be patient. We will wait for the European kind of decisions about Georgia's European integration. So we have to demonstrate this patience. But at the same time, we will consistently fulfill all the obligations which are about accelerating our European integration.
How are you taking that conversation with the Georgian people forwards? You know, was the election enough? Do you think you'll be holding a referendum in the near future?
So we are the government for all citizens. Our support was 54%, but around 38% of Georgians voted for the radical opposition. We have to take care also of their interests. It's also one of our responsibilities.
What is your current relationship like with Russia? Do you have any plans to reopen the Russian embassy in Tbilisi?
We have no diplomatic relations, and there is no space for restoring diplomatic relations because of the occupation of our two historic regions. Mm-hmm. And because of the so-called recognition of the so-called independence of Abkhazia and the Tskhin region. But we are running the pragmatic policy, and that's the key content of our policy towards Russia. We are keeping the trade and economic relations with Russia, and that's how we are going to run it further, to have pragmatic policy towards the Russian Federation. That's one of our kind of policy lines in terms of the kind of foreign policy of the country.
Around 20% of Georgia's territory is occupied by Russia. You know, does Georgia intend to take those territories and reclaim them back?
So the territorial integrity of Georgia is, of course, one of the national issues for our country, for our people. This territorial integrity is recognized by the international community, and of course we have to defend our national interest in this respect. But our vision is peaceful. We have been repeatedly saying that a non-peaceful solution is absolutely impossible in this case, and only peacefully we would like to restore our territorial integrity. It has no alternative. And we are hopeful that at some point this will be realistic. Let's see.
Georgia has lost more than 14,000 lives through Russian aggression over the years. You know, Georgians understand the situation better than anyone else, you know, from anyone who suffered from a war. If Russia and Ukraine were to enter into a peace agreement, who would you be backing?
So we suffered a lot since early 90s, as you have mentioned, and that was the key reason why we had to fight a lot so intensively to avoid another war in Georgia. And it was not easy for us not to become the second front line, because there was a very high interest and there was a request in this respect, and we did our best to avoid another war in Georgia. In terms of the peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, I think it has no alternative. From the very beginning, from February 2022, we have been saying that the ceasefire has no alternative. People are dying. Of course, the international community should be fully concentrated on promoting this ceasefire agreement and the peace. That's the key for improving the overall situation in the region and in the world.
Do you see Georgia's future as being fully integrated into Western security and the economic system, even if it means a worsening relationship with Russia?
So, you know, we have quite clear foreign policy goals. In terms of the NATO integration, that's not on the agenda at this moment because of the Western countries' kind of decisions and approaches and the overall context around us, but the European integration is the key foreign policy priority. Of course, while making any step, we have to take into consideration all the side effects of it. For example, we had to make a very kind of crucial decision about not introducing sanctions against the Russian Federation, which was kind of requested behind the closed doors and sometimes also publicly by the Western stakeholders. We had to defend our national interests. So we had calculated quite in a simple way that introducing sanctions against the Russian Federation would cause a huge problems for the Georgian economy. Even in the first year, the recession would make around minus 10%. And according to the pessimistic scenario, it could reach even minus 18%. So finally, you always have to make balanced decisions. But finally, I think that we can finally become the full-fledged member of the European Union without sacrificing our key national interests.
You mentioned earlier the new US administration. You know, they're bringing evolutions into the region. What is your focus there? Have you spoken to Trump yet?
Not yet, but we are optimistic, and the Georgian people is optimistic when they are listening to the recent statements, also about the USAID, for example, about NED. So we have been talking about these problems since 2021. We have initiated the transparency law in Georgia, which has been criticized by the US Embassy very heavily under the previous administration. This law was just about the transparency, about submitting the annual financial declarations by the NGOs to the Ministry of Justice of Georgia. And the US Embassy under the previous administration said that it was the black day for Georgia. So we are very much happy that our messages are the same, coinciding with the new administration's messages. And of course, these developments make us very optimistic that we can restore the partnership with the United States. You know that the former administration suspended the strategic partnership with Georgia, And we have stated very clearly that Georgia is ready to restore the strategic partnership with the United States.
Can you tell me about the strategic role that Georgia plays as a transit door between Asia and Europe? How important is that?
Initiative. Historically, Georgia was connecting Europe with Asia and East with the West. And we would like to restore this historic function for Georgia as much as possible. And for that, we are doing a lot. We are investing into our infrastructure, including the highways, the seaports, the airports, etc., railway. And of course, these investments create some new opportunities for Georgia. We would like to further strengthen the partnership with relevant countries on both sides of the trade. With Europe, with United States, and at the same time with the countries in the South Caucasus, with Central Asian countries, with China. I think these kind of trends, the positive trends that we enjoy at this moment, can promote the restoration of our strategic function.
Very finally, if you could send individual messages to President Trump, President Putin, and then also to Europe, what would those individual messages be?
I would have some common message for everybody around us. Fairness is the key. I think during the last years, we had to face a lot of unfair approaches. I think the fair approach can also properly promote the objective interests of all different countries around us.
Prime Minister, thank you as always for talking to Euronews. Pleasure to see you today. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much.